Welcome, everybody, to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Well, there's a lot of things I could go with, but really, in this moment right now, I feel like I just need to celebrate the fact that a cold front has gone through the media room in the last 5 minutes as about 75 people have left, and they have turned the air conditioning back on, and the temperature has gone from about 107 down to a very manageable low 80s.
Yeah, it feels like it's a dream right now. It was warm in here. A lot of people in here. Will Howard, as you guys were watching on the stream, commented about the heat, and you know it's bad when a quarterback who's been getting chased by a bunch of defenders all day long is like, it's warm up here, right? It's hot. And he was out there earlier today. So out there for Ohio State's 52-6 win over Akron to start the season. Tom, this was a lot of debuts in this one, but I guess we should go ahead and
well, let's get to the super chat, and we are going to just moving forward. We're going to run through the game, and then we'll get to the comments and the questions and all that kind of stuff. About 30 minutes in the show, we are going to hit the super chat right now, just so you guys know. Moving forward, that's the deal. Mike Ferguson says, "I like how OSU allowed Safe Light Field to be highlighted in a bold green on the field. It looks like they went in last night when the stadium was dark with a box cutter and a hot glue gun to install it."
It's relatively noticeable from up top too. When you look down from the press box, you can see where the turf used to be and that new turf is. And that is new. And I don't know, you don't hear it like we're watching. I'm like, hey, asking somebody, so should we refer to this as Safe Light Field at Ohio Stadium? And I didn't get any yeses on that from anybody. So
here's my, let me answer your question with a question. Are they paying me to say it? No?
That's true.
Okay, well then.
No. So yeah, that was... give it time. Maybe it'll fade a little bit, but it's going to be noticeable for a while. Maybe they should have just made it like super noticeable, like they're not even trying to hide it.
Just a little piece of the red turf from Eastern Washington.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. So fortunately, there are no slippings or anybody falling over there. Although Travion Henderson did slip in that area. I don't know it was right there though. That would be bad.
I don't know. I don't know if it was right on there, but
you know, it's sponsor money, so you're going to take it.
You are.
Let's talk about. Before we get to Will Howard, which we will eventually talk about, I guess we have to start the show with Jeremiah Smith because I have been touting him. Nobody else was. I've been touting him that he might be pretty good. And
Gerd had it first.
Yes,
he loves to say this.
Must credit me. I swear to you, Tom, if he catches that first tunnel screen, it's gone.
Yes.
There was a lane for him. He was out the door.
And do you know how many touchdowns he would have had that happened?
At least one.
Well, he had two later, so I'm going to say roughly three.
Yeah.
Which, that's if you had thought that was going to, if you called before the game that was going to happen, that would have been pretty bold.
Yeah, it would have been pretty bold. 2 touchdowns, 6 catches, 92 yards for Jeremiah Smith in his debut, joining, I believe, basically just Michael Wiley as the last Ohio State, the only other Ohio State true freshman to wide receiver to catch 2 touchdown passes in the season opener back in 1996. Michael Wiley, of course, eventually moves to running back. But pretty good company, and it's rarefied air for sure. But I'm interested in what everybody else thought as well, that they finally got to see an extended amount of Jeremiah Smith, because we didn't get to see it in the spring game. They got him out pretty early, only had a couple of catches there. Got moving the chains, but also got utilized downfield as well, and in the red zone as well. Will Howard, as you guys saw, talking about when you have Jeremiah Smith in press coverage, you just throw it, and he'll adjust and he'll make the play, and he showed that in the end zone.
Right. Is what they said a week or two ago was, Ryan Day said, if he told Will Howard, if it's one-on-one coverage, the receiver's open.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where the defensive back is. If it's one-on-one coverage, the receiver's open. And you saw that with the long one down the field where Jeremiah Smith made a nice adjustment, made a one-handed catch. The one that was not a touchdown was, I think, his longest catch of the day. But he was targeted 9 times. Mm-hmm. He was the true freshman, day one, was targeted more than Emeka Ibuka, who is a 4th-year, extremely proven veteran. Carnell Tate, who was getting positive comps to Marvin Harrison this time last year. Both of them looked every bit the part. And then Jeremiah Smith, more targets, more receptions, more yards, more touchdowns. Sure. Welcome to, this is why we've been saying the things that we've been saying for the last 8 months.
Yeah, and just wait till he's playing 4 quarters, you know, and there's still a lot more there that he can do, and he will do. If you're just joining us, or if you have been joining us, go ahead and hit the thumbs up. We would appreciate that here on the post-game tailgate presented by Tailgate USA. It wasn't just Jeremiah Smith, though. I mean, when Carnell Tate gets that last touchdown there at the end, where, as Will Howard said, it's just a little curl. I read it. It's one quick read, and I throw it, and they do the rest. Emeka Egbuka, 4 for 51. Carnell Tate, 4 for 58. And then, of course, Jeremiah Smith, 6 for 92. Those three are going to do this. It's going to be different versions of this guy has 92 yards this week, and this guy has 56 this week. Or at some point, there's going to be some, a couple of hundreds in there. But these three are certainly as advertised. I felt good for Carnell Tate because he finally got to show some of the run after catch that he can do, because we view him as kind of this X receiver that will move the chains or whatever, but everybody else views him as, no, he's a legit playmaker. And you saw that as he read the defense and just kept stretching it out, because that was an explosive play, 34 yards on just a little simple thing. That's what he can do. And
it looked like he caught it and just sort of ran in a straight line, but he did make a couple little cuts, and just, it was sort of similar to how people will talk about quarterbacks in the pocket, not having to make huge steps, just sort of little shifts, little weight shifts almost, to make guys fly by. There was an Akron defensive back that was like, he's got an ankle, he's got an ankle. Nope, right by. Oh, let me just slide right past you there. And yeah, nice long touchdown for him. It felt like the wide receivers had a nice. Jeremiah Smith is the one everyone's going to talk about, but the wide receiver unit had a nice balanced day. Saw a little bit of Brandon Innes out there. You can tell this is one of these games where we hear, we think, we know our 3 and we think we know 4. This is where you sort of see, they can talk whatever they want. You can see what order guys are coming in. Brandon is clearly the number 4 guy on this team. There's definitely some talent behind them as well. Bryson Rogers was in there earlier than I thought he might be, which was, that's good for him. Had a nice reception. It was, I think, a solid day for the wide receivers. I know the first half was, everyone was deeply disturbed by the first half. It was not a great first half by any means. It was also, so much of that game was, oh boy, oh man, how week 1 is this game? There was the officials couldn't get stuff right, not like calls, but just there was a thing where they were talking about it, and then they reviewed something, and I think it just felt like they were a little not on the same page. You had it was a lot of procedure penalties over 5 guys in the backfield, kind of penalties. It looked like week 1. And Tony, what happens between week 1 and week 2?
Everybody gets a little bit better. The improvements are made. It also looked like I don't know if CBS had this, looked like there were some communication issues as well, because Will Howard was asking for plays and stuff like that, and would have to come over a little bit, and looked like maybe the headsets weren't working. I don't know if that was the case. He didn't say anything like that.
And
but
Joe Moorhead at the Akron press conference said the communication worked great for them today, so that they had no problems.
Yeah, so maybe Will Howard is just shaking him off like a pitcher. It's like, no. Give me something else. So then I guess we can talk about Will Howard. The start was clunky, but I thought the coverage was really good on a lot of these pass plays, because they were breaking up the passes. And I don't know, Ryan Day said that the offensive line was a little bit tight, and then they eventually loosened up. I think Will Howard was as well, and maybe wasn't processing as quickly as he needed to, or maybe perhaps processing too quickly at times and not letting something develop, because he had time. And I would agree with Ryan Day. He was very comfortable in the pocket. He was able to just step away from a couple of rushers at times. So I think there was a lot to like there. He was 17 of 28 for 228 yards, 3 touchdowns. Had the one bad play where he's trying to avoid a sack, and he kind of threw a lateral to Travion, and it's like,
it's my Jameis Winston tribute.
Yeah, I always think of Todd Beckman when I see something like that happen, where it's just like this, what am I doing? What are you doing? You just one random throw per game. You're just trying to get rid of it because you don't want to take the sack. But overall, I think there was a lot to like there. 19-yard touchdown rush. Yes, I know it's Akron, Tom. I'm not sure if you're aware. This is just Akron.
Oh,
but
interesting.
So he had 18 yards rushing, 228 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 61% completion. But I believe he was like right at 50% in the first half, maybe a little bit below 6 for 14 or something like that, and picked it up from there.
Yeah, it looked a little bit like a guy who, okay, it's your first time playing in the stadium with a bunch of fans in there in a real game with an actual opponent on the other sideline, and he got a little bit of a patchwork offensive line. Yeah, the offensive line was not great, but it was fine for what it was. But it was, that's a little off, and you're sort of mixing and matching, and they can say all they want to say. It's hard to take an opponent like that super duper seriously. So then if you don't score right away, in your head you're going to go right up and down the field, and it's going to be touchdown, 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 and bing bang boom, you're up 35-0 in the middle of the second quarter, and you're pulling the starters at that point. When that doesn't happen, everyone kind of starts looking around like, hey, that's weird. We were supposed to have 21 points right now. Why do we have 7? It's game one. I really cannot emphasize enough how game one this is. And you look back at other teams, you look back at, I remember covering in 2007, I remember there was an Ohio State, was it Akron? Ohio State? No, it was Ohio State, Youngstown State, and it was 3-2 at halftime. And that same year, I was working for a company and covered a bunch of different games in different parts of the country, and one of the games I covered was a Tulane-LSU game at the Superdome, and that was when Matt Forte was on Tulane, and I think that game was maybe 9-7 LSU at the half, and those two teams played for the national championship. One bad half against a team that you're a massive favorite against in September does not mean you are not going to win the national championship. Tony, may I remind you about the Michigan Bowling Green game last September? It was, I think, 14-6 Michigan at halftime. You're going to have a game like this. If this turns into, it looks like that against Western Michigan, and it looks like that against Marshall, at that point you have my permission to feel a little bit concerned. One half where then the second half they hit the gas and pulled away. I don't look at that as, boy, there are huge concerns here. Are they absolutely 100% perfectly locked in and ready to play for the national championship in every spot? No. It was probably good they didn't have Georgia on the schedule. But Georgia's not on the schedule until sometime in January. Yeah. So, they'll get there. Now they have to worry about Western Michigan. As
an aside, Davis Warren, 4 for 5 for 21 yards with an interception so far. Michigan winning 7-0. A little like 3-yard passing touchdown. So the running game, because this was also a slow start, and I think we can put some of that on the offensive line as well. You had Austin Searveld at left guard because Donovan Jackson was out, and this was Seth McLaughlin's first game as a Buckeye, and it's just a different. He's been the center all along, but still, it's another debut for several guys or a couple of guys in there, and it did take them a little bit. Quinshon Judkins looked like it took him a little bit to get going, but also then you could tell he's a guy that give me more, and things are going to start happening. 13 carries in this one, so there is no more. It's like you got, maybe we'll give you this one series and you might get 4 or 5 carries out of it, so you better do what you can with it, especially in a game like this. Travion Henderson, 8 for 65. I think maybe the most impressive part of this, his long carry was 21 yards. He averaged 8 yards a carry. That is consistent, and he had a couple that almost went, and frankly so did Quinshon Judkins, like a 13-yarder that was close to going, and maybe some sustained blocks, a little bit more would get those. But I think those two obviously are going to be fine. 4.2 yards per carry for Quinshon Judkins doesn't really concern me at this point because he's got a track record. I did like James Peoples again. We continue to see him, had a nice touchdown run. 33 carries for 170 yards overall, 5.2 yards per carry. You would have liked to have seen them go over 200 for sure. It is interesting, though. Ohio State had 39 total plays through 3 quarters.
Yeah.
They finished with 64.
Yeah, but 39 plays through three quarters, that's 13 plays a quarter.
Yeah, it's not
that
a
is
lot.
52 plays in a game. That is a very low number. And that has sort of been the trend nationally. So I think you may, to some degree, need to recalibrate your expectations on what is an acceptable score, or the type of score that, well, you should just be able to go up and down the field on this team. You should be able to score 70 points. Now maybe that's, if you go up and down on the field against a team, maybe that's now not 70, maybe it's 63.
And it's like, well, then just tell the defense to get off the field.
Right.
But Akron had the ball for 34 minutes and 3 seconds. They had 177 total yards. They didn't have great drives. They had their longest drive was 47 yards. Yeah.
They did not have a 50-yard drive on the day, but they were very methodical with taking their time, chewing the clock, keeping the Ohio State offense off the field. I talked to Joe Moorhead about sort of their approach, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. But very clearly their approach was, well, we're not going to be able to defend these guys, so the best way to defend them is to keep them on the sideline. And 10 plays, 47 yards, 5:18 off the clock. They had a 12 for 45 later in the first half. They had a 7 for 44 in the second half. But they just kept chewing.
The best drive
is 10 plays, 19 yards. That was at the start of the second half. They went 19 yards, but it took 10 plays, and they chewed 6 minutes and 15 seconds off the clock. They didn't do anything, but it was like running the four corners in football. And that impacts how many snaps Ohio State gets and how many times Ohio State can score.
Yeah, it's looking. Ohio State had about 200 and some yards in the second half. So the offensively they were pretty even in both halves. And I'm just wondering if 450 yards is the new 550 yards. Which the high octane, because it's not like Ohio State is moving all that quickly either. They didn't do much of any turbo, hurry up.
They did at one point, and the photographer next to me, hi Mike, hi Michael, Mike. He goes by either one, but my buddy Mike was sitting next to me, and Ohio State runs a couple plays at up tempo. He goes, an Akron player is about to get hurt. Just watch. And immediately, in the next play, one of the defensive linemen, my goiter, and then tempo slows down, and then it's that is just something that is part of football now, for better or for worse.
Defensively for the Buckeyes, Caleb Downs, a career low 2 tackles in a game. Buyer's remorse, Tom, or no, just give him another chance? His previous career low was 4 tackles. He did that twice. But the thing is, when you've got a lot of guys around you, you're not going to get all of the tackles, and we knew that he certainly wasn't going to hit that. I don't think he's going to hit the 107 tackles he had last year, but Latham Ransom was very, very good. There were too many missed tackles overall today, but then again, you go back and look, it's 170-some yards, 2.8 yards per play. It could have been even better.
Yeah, you're going to face better skill talent, and sometimes that turns, one missed tackle turns a 4-yard gain into a 60-yard gain. This turned a 4-yard gain into an 8-yard gain kind of thing a lot. But I did not have as I've said before, I'm down on the sidelines, sitting behind the end zone, so I don't necessarily have a great view of all of the stuff. Was it just sort of broadly missed tackles, or were there certain guys who were missing tackles, or was it...
Well, and I maybe C.J. Hicks maybe overran some, but I don't think anybody was perfect, because Caleb Downs missed a tackle.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people were raving about Arvell Reese. He missed a tackle. Mm-hmm. Nobody was perfect in this, but Denzel Burke missed a tackle on a play where Caleb Downs was kind of going towards the line of scrimmage, which could be a danger zone for another opponent. But I think it's you get those missed tackles, you realize I'm not all that just yet, and that continues to fire you up and focus you and build you towards next week. And as you said, the improvement from week 1 to week 2 for young guys, for old guys, there's going to be a lot to correct here, and you still only gave up 6 points.
And watching
and outscored the opponent.
And you did it. Hey, imagine predicting that. That would be pretty bold.
I can't imagine it.
Pretty bold. One thing I did think a couple times watching this game was boy, this defense sure does look better with Latham Ransom back there in the back.
Yes.
There's so much conversation about Caleb Downs, and rightfully so. Caleb Downs is going to be a hugely impactful player on this team. Latham Ransom is one of those guys who, it's not like Ohio State fans don't know who he is. He's respected, he's credited for being a good player on the back end of the defense. But you see him so often making big plays in big moments. I mean, the thing that immediately is going to come to everyone's mind is the scoop and score fumble, but just constantly around the ball, a couple tackles for loss. That's someone who you see him making plays on receivers down the field. You see him making plays behind the line of scrimmage. He's kind of all over the place. Very, very big for them to have him back.
Yeah, I believe like 4.5 tackles for loss for the secondary as a whole. Like they're all getting involved. I think it's really good to see. But yeah, Latham Ransom back there makes this a different defense, and combine him with Caleb Downs and everybody else and Jordan Hancock, a lot to like there. Arvell Reese was, Sonny Styles got the start at middle linebacker, but Arvell Reese came in. He did not look out of place. They're gaining yards with a lot of these swing passes and stuff, and he showed the athleticism and the ability to cover the same ground as those running backs, and I thought that was pretty impressive. I think they're deeper now there than they've been, and we did wonder who was going to be in for Cody Simon. And it started out Sonny Styles, but it wasn't long before Arvell Reese was that third linebacker mixing in with C.J. Hicks and didn't look out of place at all. I think there's a lot to like there, as the coaches have been trying to tell us.
The coaches have talked about him a bunch, but sometimes it takes until seeing a game like this to know whether you're getting happy talked, which sometimes you do get happy talked, and it's just, well, this guy's having a rough week, and so we're going to talk him up a little bit, and then his friends and family will see that we still love him, and that happens. But then there are also times when you hear your guy gets talked up, and then you see it on the field, and it's like, okay, and Arvell Reese was definitely in that bucket for me in game one. He feels like, again, I would love to go back and actually watch the game from a place where they don't call the plays from sitting behind the end zone, Tony. There's a reason for that, but I would like to go back and watch that. But just from where I was, he felt like he had a really impactful day.
Yeah, the defensive line was also impactful. I probably didn't see it live. You go back and watch it. There's a spin move that Jack Sawyer throws out, I think, in the first quarter. That is one of the best I've ever seen. The right tackle doesn't even touch him and forces the quarterback to get rid of the ball quickly. And he lays down on the ground after a while after getting hit by Jack Sawyer. And boy, Finley got the...
He got hit back-to-back plays by Jack Sawyer. And you look at Jack Sawyer's line in the box score, 2 total tackles, 1 quarterback hurry.
Yeah.
That really does not tell the story of Jack Sawyer's day. Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, and there were, I think, a couple times that I saw Kenyatta Jackson.
Caden Curry had a forced fumble.
Caden Curry had a forced fumble. I mean, the defensive ends had a heck of a day.
Mitchell Melton, too.
Mitchell Melton had a sack.
Edric Houston, 2 pass breakups. The one led to the Gabe Powers touchdown.
Oh, was he the one who tipped that one? Okay. Yeah, I saw the first one because I couldn't tell who
long
tipped it.
arms.
He does, yeah, and you see him out there, and it's, he's another guy where you've heard it's coming along nicely. We don't know how much. I don't know how much he's really going to play this year because they have so many talented guys ahead of him. But if he's out there already making plays on day one, then what's it going to look like 3 months from now? You might work your way up that ladder a little bit. But yeah, the defensive ends were very, very good. There were a couple times where I put a picture I took a picture of the screen on the back of my camera and put it on Twitter just because it was JT Tuimoloau just blasting past the left tackle. And it was one of the all-time lookout blocks where JT Tuimoloau was streaking like a comet at the quarterback, and the left tackle's like, heads up!
Yeah.
And what else is he going to do? These are not going to be the best tackles that the defensive line goes against, but boy, it was a very, very... I feel like I've said the word impactful a lot today, but there were a lot of impacts on Akron offensive players.
Yeah, 3 quarterbacks played in this one for Akron. The rushmen were back. All 4 defensive ends were on the field at times together, so that was good to see. Anything else defensively before we talk about Brandon Innes and his eventuality of returning a punt for a touchdown?
Yeah, it does. But let me look at the defensive box score real quick. Jermaine Matthews was out there quite a bit.
He's feisty.
Jermaine Matthews was both out there at the, I think they maybe pulled Denzel Burke off the field for a series. So he was out there with the starters, but then he was also out there at the very end of the game with the 2s or the 3s, where it feels like he's probably someone who's, they view him clearly as the next guy. That's not a big surprise, but he feels like he's someone they can just kind of put out there. Aaron Scott was out there. You saw a bunch of guys who we've heard the encouraging things about. To see them out there is okay. Yes, they really mean it when they're saying this stuff.
Lorenzo Styles, I believe, was the number 2 nickel in there, which tells me that they like Jermaine Matthews is back to corner strictly, or not strictly, but for now. Jalen McClain got time there at the end, and Malik Hartford did as well. Hero Canoe had a nice play down in the middle there. Anything else defensively before we?
I think we're good.
Because Ryan Day said it, and I would agree with him that the return game, kickoff and punt return, looks better than it has in a while. And it's like, why? What did you make any changes? Was there anything new that you've done with the special teams at all? Why the big change? Anything noticeable? Did you want to tell us something?
Yeah, it did. There was the one punt that Innes caught kind of on the run, or it looked like did it bounce maybe? He caught it it just looked like the Akron coverage team just kind of let up for a second, and then he caught it on the run. And I'm just looking through my camera lens, and my brain just kind of went, all the sirens went off, and I said out loud, "Uh-oh!" You could see this about to happen, and he ended up getting tackled. But you could see it happening. There was another long one, very deep down in the south end of the stadium, where he had a punt return, I think, where he had another one where he just has that burst, and it's like. One guy away, 2 guys away. And
he can make guys miss, and he can go side to side, but also he doesn't lose yards while he's doing it. But I wonder what they'll talk to him about, because the 36-yard punt return he had, he took it back to the 4.
He fielded another one inside the 5.
So he had 4 returns for 60 yards. Do you know how many yards and punt returns they had all season last year, Ohio State?
I do know this because I looked it up for bold predictions and didn't do anything with it, but I think, wasn't it 120 or something?
75.
75, okay.
17 for 75.
So they've basically just about equaled that.
And it looks, it's Akron, it's one game, but he certainly looks like he is enjoying that piece of it, and it seems like it's a matter of time.
Something else that seemed like a matter of time was that we were going to get to see Nick McLarty, but
that was, Ryan Day said that Joe McGuire had the better week.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's an Australian punter.
By a lot.
It's an Australian punter, so it's fine. I mean, if he's not from America, it's fine.
Yeah.
They have multiple good options. Yeah. I did see, he was not introduced, but I did see Cameron Johnston coming down the tunnel. So there were actually 3 Australian punters from Ohio State.
Is that too much Australian punting?
Never too much,
okay.
Tony.
All right.
Never enough.
I think we've covered anything else that you want to talk about with this before we start getting to questions and super chats and interviews.
Okay. Yeah, let's not keep the folks waiting, especially the super chat folks. Dave K says, I know Negative Tom was dying to drop at J.J. Smith is a bust hot take after the first drive. Shame on you, Tom. Man, I did think about putting out something that, this is the guy. It was one of those things where it's like 10 years ago, I absolutely was put out an extremely sarcastic tweet, and then I was like, someone will take this seriously. So I didn't. And am I the hero of this story?
No.
Growing, maturing?
No. You want a cookie?
I agree, yes.
This isn't a coming-of-age story.
That's right. But I will tell you, there was, in jest, people joking about it in the press box, like,
Oh, yeah. Well,
bust.
And that's
a penalty, and you drop a pass, back-to-back. Like, come on, get this guy off the field.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I'm sure as much as he has it together and as much as he has this mature approach and is very focused, I'm sure his eyes were probably as big as dinner plates when he probably saw the same thing you did, which is all I have to do is catch this ball and start running, and I'm going to have a touchdown on my first play, and then oops, didn't look it in, and that's it. And you have a penalty on the next play. It would have been very easy to spiral from there.
Yeah.
But the fact that Will Howard talked about the fact that no one even felt the need to go talk to him and be like, "Hey, it's okay, buddy." Like they don't feel the need to coddle him. No, he is treated like a veteran in every way.
It's like, do you coddle him and then pull out the E. Gordon Gee? I just hope he doesn't coddle me, because he's like obviously very mature, and the way they're all matter of fact, Ryan Day and Will Howard, like, no, we didn't. You don't have to say anything. We've seen so much from him. Like, this isn't, and JJ himself said he was glad that this happened like right away. It's like getting hit the first time, and you get those jitters out, and you get back to it.
All right. Next super chat from Mike Smith. Given players playing in new spots at a new group, missing a guard, and a flyer quarterback in the shoe, new process and new communication process. It wasn't too bad. Things to work on, but Day would prefer that, I assume.
Yeah. Well, and Ryan Day also talked about how the running game, you've got to stick with it, and it's not always pretty, and you got to build on it and wear things down. It's kind of like knocking down a building with a sledgehammer. Eventually the building is gone, but it doesn't ever look pretty while you're doing it. So I think there's a lot of that, but I would agree with all of this. And then also the fact that it's Akron, like, well, I don't know how much you should be able to overcome that. And it's like, well, they kind of did. You're averaging 5.5 yards per carry. Trevion Henderson averaging 8. If it's just Henderson and James Peoples, and they're averaging their 7-8 yards a carry, then this looks better. Instead, they had to throw in Quinshawn Judkins and get him out there. But yeah, I don't have any concerns. And once they get that offensive line going, and my one nitpick, not my one nitpick, but a nitpick is they did not go downfield much at all in this one, except for maybe the Will Howard's one throw to Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah.
Devin Brown did at the end there.
Yeah.
But I think they need to do that more, and that would also help the running game.
It will, and Joe Moorhead talked about that. We'll play that a little bit later on. We want to get through these super chats first. But in terms of how they were going to approach it, they didn't want to get torch deep, so they had to play a little bit softer. And that's one of those things where Ohio State took what they gave them. And yeah, you would love to see them heaving the ball downfield like it's Tecmo Super Bowl and Warren Moon. Why didn't Will Howard just drop back to the back of the end zone and then throw it 120 yards like Warren Moon did? Even Cody Carlson could do that, Tony, please.
Oh, yes.
So, no, you're taking what they're giving you. You are being responsible. You're taking care of the ball.
Routine things routinely.
Do the routine things routinely. Take care of the ball. Outside of the one play where it looked like he forgot where he was for a minute, he really took care of the ball very well. There weren't a lot of pass breakups. I don't think. There wasn't a lot of.
Early on, they were getting their hands on balls, but there was a lot of the short stuff, and they were right there in coverage.
Yeah.
The RPOs they defended pretty well in that first half. But you look at his numbers, like I said, 17 for 28, 228 yards. Like this is almost the very definition of routine things routinely. Just get the ball. The Carnell Tate touchdown is a perfect example of that, where it's probably a 12-yard pass that goes 34 yards for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's a certain amount of that where he just has to do his part. He doesn't have to be flashy. He just has to distribute the ball. And if you distribute the ball to Trevion Henderson in the flat on a little dump-off pass, you can throw the ball. This is the J.J. McCarthy story. You can throw the ball 3 yards upfield and have someone run 50 yards upfield, and you get credit for 50 yards.
Is that right?
Yeah,
it's pretty nice.
That's the thing, yes. Sorry, I've lost my tab. Super chat from Ryan Dawes. Talk about the defense if you haven't already. We have, but give me a grade on the defensive performance, and give me this is the thing, this is the good thing, and this is the bad thing from the day.
Yeah, I'd probably just say a B. I'm a lenient grader because I have a heart of gold. I know teachers, and it's like you don't want to just crush the kid before they have an opportunity to blossom into a beautiful butterfly.
Grade inflation.
design my tests to the score that the state asks us to hit. Okay?
Savvy.
So, but I would say the great thing, the good thing was just how aggressive they were. The creating turnovers, getting into the backfield. They have 3 forced turnovers, 10 tackles for loss or so. So they were creating havoc. And as Ryan Day said, there's a difference between disrupting and dominating. And this got into the dominating aspect where it was just wave after wave, and you felt things going poorly for Akron. And in the first half, it was like the defense needs to make a play here and just get off the field and help the defense out. One of those things where something is going to happen. You can just feel them later on. It's like, okay, something is about to happen. Even at the end, standing in the end zone, it's like, I don't know that Ohio State is done yet. And you see Edric Houston tip it up, and Gabe Powers, very nice catch.
Yes.
To bring that in. So I would say that's a great part. The not so great was the missed tackles. They need to clean that up. I'm sure Jim Knowles is not going to be happy about it. James Laurinaitis is not going to be happy about it. Matt Guerreri and Tim Walton aren't going to be happy about any of this. Larry Johnson will be like, I thought my guys did good.
And they did. Larry Johnson's guys did great. Yeah,
Kenyatta Jackson missed a tackle. There you go.
Okay, there you go. So you're so negative. Gosh.
Hey, that's what the super chat was for.
So I think this is just one of those things where you have lots of stuff to teach off of from week one. This is
a good thing.
You want to make your mistakes now. You make your mistakes against Akron. If everything goes too well and everyone gets too proud of themselves and too excited about things, it just that's not great. You want guys to be continuing to focus, and how many people are going to grade out as champions? I think you could make a case that the offensive line maybe doesn't.
Right.
I think you could make a case that Will Howard doesn't. I think you could make a case the tight ends were pretty much invisible.
Yeah, Travion Henderson had a hell of a blitz pickup.
He did. I saw that one. That was a great one.
I think you can
mark
him down.
Travion Henderson, you can give him one. I wonder if Jeremiah Smith grades out a champion, they might find a reason not to do that.
Those first 2 plays with the illegal formation.
And on defense, probably we're having a very similar conversation. I bet that 10 guys grade out as champions, 12 guys grade out as champions.
A lot of them played to get some grades.
Yeah, not that many.
No, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Fort Wayne Buckeye Super Chat. Speaking of bold, number 17, Carnell Tate, had a 34-yard touchdown catch.
I mean, that's
no
tremendous.
That would have
if you're a bold predictions listener and viewer, this is the greatest Ohio State touchdown in history. I didn't realize it until just now.
I had no idea that this is
Don't cut that. Don't clip that.
Today showed how much Latham Ransom was missed at the end of last season.
For sure.
Strong agree there. He's one of those guys who was just. I always call Ty Hamilton the most underappreciated player on the team. I think Latham Ransom is in that conversation now.
Yeah, well, and I tweeted this out. Everybody talked about Caleb Downs. That's all we could talk about. All Caleb Downs can talk about is Latham Ransom. The times we've talked to him, it's like, no, let's talk about Latham Ransom because that guy's legit. And he's played all over in safety, all 3 safety spots in his time at Ohio State, but he sure looks really, really comfortable flying around and just continues to make plays, and he's playing exactly what you would hope. This is the best ball that, and again, it's Akron, but he's doing everything that you would hope that position does, and they know they can ask him to do so much more than most guys.
Yeah, he is he's that veteran presence where he can be sort of in charge if he needs to be, but it's like the soft factor stuff like that, but also the hard factor stuff like tackling people real hard. He does that pretty well too. Super chat from Mike Farino. Not sure if you guys have talked about Sawyer yet, but he picked up where he left off, made the first quarterback throw the ball early multiple times after he'd hit him a few times. Yeah, there were 2 back-to-back plays where he hit the quarterback, and he didn't get a sack on either one. But he hit the quarterback on the first one, and the guy got up real slowly. And then he hit the quarterback again, and then the guy didn't get up. And they were clean hits. He was there very, very close to on time. Very, very close to getting there in time to make a sack or hit his arm and cause a tipped pass or something like that. You can see him. He picked up right where he left off is exactly the right way to say it, because he was so impactful at the end of last season, and then game 1 just immediately boom, right back to it.
And it was good to see so many different defensive ends. They were rotating their top 4 out there a lot, and so he's going to be fresh throughout the course of however many quarters he's going to play. And man, this is as explosive as I've seen him in some of just these individual moves. And as I said at the start of the show, go check out that spin move early on, and I think it's in the first quarter when he knocks that quarterback Finley down for the first time. And I don't think he was ever right after that.
No, it was a little like the Corby Jones hit in the Missouri game in 1997, where Missouri's kind of hanging around and being kind of a pain in the butt, and Corby Jones, and then who's the Missouri quarterback, was a big part of that with his legs, and then Andy Katzenmoyer just paved him. I mean, you've seen the hit on
Very
YouTube.
rude.
But from that moment on, that was the guy. That was the game. That hit, and that was the game. And as soon as the quarterback went out with that second hit, it really, Joe Moorhead said, we had to get away from our 2-quarterback system, and that really, it was working, and then when they had to get away from it, then it stopped working.
Yeah, at that point, they were only allowed to get 1 quarterback killed.
Yes.
Instead of both of them.
Yeah, well, it was kind of, it was just, the way he got hit twice in a row and was kind of carried off the field, I could just see the quarterbacks on the sideline just kind of going, not it. Why not you?
Just slink back in the background.
Your turn? Yeah. Mike Smith says, off topic, but we need you two in full pads, number 17 and number 34, not players. Eye black and all. Subscribe to Buckeye Huddle if you haven't already. That is a strong recommendation there.
I agree with most of that statement.
Which one of us would be 17 and which one of us would be 34? I absolutely know the answer. I'm going to see if you get it correct.
I grew up a Walter Payton fan, a Bears fan, so I would request 34 for sweetness' sake. Also, I wore kangaroos as a kid. I also had a Walter Payton jacket. So you, of course, grew up and you had a Jalen Marshall jacket.
Keith Hernandez. So
that's right.
Yes,
there you go.
Who was the second spinner?
Keith Hernandez is arguably the second best National League first baseman to wear number 17 of all time, behind Mark Grace, who is basically Keith Hernandez is the mustached version of Mark Grace.
Arizona Diamondbacks legend, Mark Grace. Mike Smith says, for the bold prediction thumbnail. Do we have a good bold prediction thumbnail this week?
I don't know. I will try to come up with something.
Right.
I will buy Photoshop with that $1.99.
Sorry, that's what he wanted. That's what he wanted us. He wanted us in Photoshop into the jerseys for the bold prediction thumbnail.
I would, if we put, yeah.
I don't hate it. This feels like something you might be able to sick AI on, and yet.
Would you like us in the knocker balls as well? Yes, Kevin says yes. Thank you, Kevin. Dynamite dropping.
It's just me. Tim says pick the MVP of the game.
MVP of the game. Defensively, it's going to be difficult not to go with Latham Ransom. Tyleek Williams, 7 tackles, chasing screens all the way to the sideline, getting into the backfield. He continues to be fun to watch. But I might go with Latham Ransom. Honorable mention to Arvell Reese just for getting in there and making some noise. Offensively, Tom,
fine. I'll just take a freshman. We'll do like the freshman MVP of the game, and you can pick the rest. So it'll be like the freshman All-American team.
Yeah, okay.
I will take Jeremiah Smith.
All right.
I think he arguably had an impactful day, and arguably I was a little concerned that if he did not have a good day, we were going to hear about the fact that the irresponsible media had been gassing up this poor kid and how stupid we are. And
nobody was happier than we were.
No, not happy, just relieved.
Yes, relieved, yeah. Kind of like Ryan Day after a win over Michigan. Are you happy or are you relieved? I was relieved. My offensive MVP of the non-freshman, Travion. Because he was effective catching the ball, running the ball. Looks like if he had 20 carries in this game, he's going for about 170, 180 yards, because there's going to be a long one in there as well.
Well, you watch Travion Henderson on a day like today, and you go, oh, yeah. That's what he looks like when he's healthy. Because he was banged up a bunch last year, and when he's banged up, he doesn't quite look like himself. And then when you see him when he looks healthy, you go, oh, yeah, that's what Travion Henderson looks like. He makes these incredible plays and makes these huge plays all the time.
Made some dudes miss, was making some cuts in there, so it wasn't just about hitting the hole and reaching the seam because he's fast. He was making guys miss in there as well. So good to see there.
Mike super chat from Mike Farino says, off topic.
Donovan
Edwards. I had to think for a second. Donovan Edwards, NCAA cover athlete, Michigan running back 2. Cal L. Mullings, 9 carries for 32 yards. Donovan Edwards, 5 carries for 3 yards.
Yeah, that's not great, but I know there's some...
A disappointing season didn't keep him off the cover of the video game this year, so why would he do it next year?
4 yards a carry almost last year. Like, this is not new news. He's had similar games, but I think we said it at the time, like, that's a lot of hype for somebody who has had some good games, but at the right moment.
Right, exactly. He's the guy who he's Francisco Cabrera, where he hasn't done much, but when he's done, he's really made it count. Yeah. He had the 2 long runs against Ohio State at the end of the 2022 game, and he'd done almost nothing before that, but that's all anyone remembers. He had the couple, 1 or 2 long touchdowns in the national championship game. He didn't do much other than that, but that's all anyone remembers. It is just do it in the big moment, and people will remember that.
Yep.
Super chat from RK said, did Caleb Downs miss a lot of tackles today?
I don't know if he missed a lot. I know he missed one that I noticed, but I'm sure there may be others. But there's one.
It's actually the picture on the screen is
right.
The play where he missed the tackle. He had him kind of lined up, and it was not a missed tackle that led to a big gain. It was Jordan Hancock's in the background. Jordan Hancock's in the background there. I think he might have been the one who cleaned it up. But it was, he was in the spot and just didn't get the guy to the ground. And yeah, it happens.
Yep. Are we good with super chats now?
We have Mike Farino apologizing for the names.
Oh yeah, we
don't ever do that again.
We can between the two of us we can generally work it through. It's been a long day. Our brains are not working at 100%, but between the two of us, we have.
Can I tell you?
It's like pulling old batteries out of the drawer. It's like, well, they're not full, but maybe this will be enough to get the flashlight to turn on.
Put this one on your tongue, sir. That is a D battery. It's not going to do anything. All right.
So let's real quick go to Joe Moorhead, Akron head coach. I was over there. Tony and Kevin were over in here doing the Ohio State postgame. Joe Moorhead had some really interesting stuff to say. He, of course, was the former head coach he was an offensive coordinator at Penn State during the Deep State years with Trace McSorley. He was the head coach at Mississippi State for a couple of years. He was an offensive coordinator at Oregon when Oregon came to Columbus and won back in 2021. Really ate Kerry Combs' lunch that day. So he's someone who has been around. He is not just a guy who coaches at the lower levels of the MAC. He is a guy who's been around and has some interesting perspectives on things. So he was asked a couple things. You're going to hear 3 questions. The first one is after the first answer, you'll hear me ask a couple of questions. It's sort of from the back of the room. The first one's about Jeremiah Smith. The second one's about sort of how do you figure out what you're going to defend against a team like this. But the first question you're going to hear was just basically, what did you learn today?
I learned that Ohio State is an incredibly talented team that is very well coached. And we'll have an opportunity, in my opinion, having coached against the 2019 LSU team, and took my son to see Michigan last spring for a recruiting visit. So I know what a team that can play for the national championship looks like, and this looks like a team that can play for the national championship. That's what I learned about Ohio State. What I learned about our guys is, when you put this kind of game on the schedule, there's you understand what you're getting into. So I didn't, blow smoke up their tails, and show them 300 or Rocky or Hoosiers or any of that stuff. And I said, we got to control what we can control, which is how our level of preparation, how hard we play, and then execution one play at a time with no clock and no scoreboard, and work to make daily deposits that will benefit us in this game throughout the course of the season. And quite frankly, I thought we did some, certainly not indicative of the final score, but I thought we, in all 3 phases, we did some really positive things.
Joe, what did you know about Jeremiah Smith coming into this game, and what did you maybe find out about Jeremiah Smith today?
We follow each other on Twitter, which is cool. So I think it might have been, I don't know where I would have been, certainly when I wasn't here, but he's as advertised, and we recruited him when I was at Oregon, and then to take kids. So it's just an embarrassment of riches. Everywhere you look, there's a guy that can catch it and break a tackle and score, or a guy that can run by it. and a guy who can throw him the ball and a line that can protect. So to see that kid play in person after all the kind of pomp and circumstance leading up to it, he lived up to the billing.
When you're facing a team like that has running backs like they do and wide receivers like they do, how do you? It's sort of a pick your poison sort of approach. You guys played a fantastic half of defense and held them to 17 points. So how do you go about picking your poison in a situation like that where you know you can't double all the receivers and also have 8 guys in the box?
Yeah, I think the key thing is you got to try to keep it inside and in front, right? Whether it's a handoff or for a throw, and that the biggest determining factor in the outcome of football games are explosive play margin, turnover margin, and then it's third downs and red zones. So our whole thing with our defense is we wanted to put enough people at the box where they didn't just run it down our throat, but at the same time, mix up the looks with base and pressure, and then play soft enough coverage where we were going to force them to throw it probably a little shorter than they intended and try to get them on the ground. Because you're not going to. Like if you say, well, we're going to come out, we're going to completely stop them. You're delusional and kidding.
Really enjoyed listening to Joe Moorhead talk about stuff. Sometimes you get those coaches who are in the other thing, and they're just kind of mad. It's like, well, I don't know why anyone did this to us. Why would you? This is stupid. And I think he's someone who has just sort of been around. He knows how the world works. Has a pretty good sense of humor as well. Talked about we follow each other on Twitter. So humble brag.
Yeah,
very
no
nice.
kidding. Wow.
Very nice. But I did the fact if you didn't pick it up, he did recruit Jeremiah Smith when he was at Oregon a few years ago. That's how long Jeremiah Smith has sort of been a name nationally.
Well, it is with aside from the Jeremiah Smith stuff, the Joe Moorhead thing. He has given Ohio State fits in the past. So I was impressed. All of the different things that he tried, the Ohio State defense was able to. The trick plays didn't go very far, so that's another credit to the defense. But it is fascinating to watch head coaches talk about Jeremiah Smith. And Ryan Day did the same thing. Now he's like, sometimes he doesn't look human, but he is. He's like, I can assure you, totally human.
Ryan Day poor mouthing Jeremiah Smith again.
Yeah, that guy. He's just human. He's only human. But then you see the same thing from Joe Moorhead. It's like, yeah, the guy's as advertised. And the thing is, he's been really advertised. So like when you're living up to that kind of billing, you just see the respect that the coaches have. But they've known this. Like this isn't a surprise to anybody who recruited him, anybody who studied him, anybody who scouted him, and hasn't been a surprise to anybody at Ohio State.
No, the only thing that's a surprise is it took a while because we would see it and we go, oh wow, and then you see it the next day, you go, oh wow, and you see it the next day, you go, oh wow, and at some point you'd stop. He had a quiet spring game, and you went, oh wow,
Yeah.
What?
The inflection has changed.
What happened to that kid? Maybe Ryan Day's right. Maybe he is human.
Yeah.
There will at some point this year. I mean, you go through Marvin Harrison's game-by-game log, and he had games where he had 5 catches for 27 yards or whatever it is. It happens. Like, you're going to have games like that. Some teams are going to decide, we are going to take this person away. Yeah, okay, here's Marvin Harrison's game log. Opening game last year, 2 catches, 18 yards for Marvin Harrison at Indiana. So there will at some point be a game where he has a quiet day. Mm-hmm. That does not mean that he is broken forever.
It does not mean he's as bad as Marvin Harrison.
That's your opinion. That's not.
I always say one of my favorite things about college football is the new stars every year, the changeover. And so Ohio State fans now have another new star that should be here for 3 years, and that's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, it's something that, unless the NFL changes its rule, he should be here for 3 years. So I think he is off to a good enough start that he should remain probably relatively happy with his role and the offense around him and the supporting cast and the coaching he's receiving. So, you talk about, you use the phrase "sky's the limit" a lot. It feels like the sky's the limit here. Yeah,
it's like, what would he do? Not everything. There are certain things he does. You're like, that's amazing, but it's like, I expect that. Like,
right.
This does not surprise me because we've been hearing about it. And Will Howard talking about it. We can go to that here. Talking about Jeremiah Smith and the just playing with him and what they expect from him, the way he is, just the maturity that he has come in, and they don't have to correct him on stuff. Just you throw him the ball. If it's press coverage, just throw it to him. He's open. Will Howard talking about that, and also just talking about his first game at Ohio State, what it's like to play here at Ohio State, and what it's like to be part of this team. So check that out.
We one of our goals in this game was to play clean, and I feel like we didn't really do that in the first half. But at the end of the day, we just kind of had to get together and say, settle down. Just play our game. Don't think about it too much. Don't let the fact that it's maybe our first time playing the shoe, like, just got to settle in, and play football. And I think we did a good job of that in the second half. But we definitely need to work on starting a little faster, starting a little better, and not having those mistakes that we had in the first half. Me personally, included in that. And I mean, we built off it, and we came out in the second half and guns a-blazing and did really well. And obviously, a win is a win, and when you win by as much as we did, like, it's good. And I'm happy that we won. But there's still a lot of stuff to clean up.
Steve Hellwagen, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, well, the first touchdown to Jeremiah looks like he makes kind of an adjustment on the ball and turns back shoulder. Just what did you see on that play? What did he do to complete it? And is that an advanced concept for a young guy to be able to make that play?
If he's pressed and it's one-on-one, put it up, and he'll make the play. And that's exactly what he did. I just saw he was pressed, so I tried to put it up over top, and he actually made a little adjustment and came back to it. And I mean, that's all I got to do is just give him a chance, and he's going to do the rest. You guys saw that today.
Over to the right, Austin Ward, the podcast.
Well, Ryan said that nobody needed to say anything to Jeremiah after that drop screen there on the opening drive. Is that the case? You just
No, there was no word said. I mean, none of us were worried about him at all. I mean, we were, obviously, it's a drop, it's uncharacteristic, but hey, I made a couple of bad passes, and it's not gonna be perfect, man. But it's that next play mentality. Mental toughness is the ability to move on to the next most important thing, and we knew his maturity level. We weren't worried about it, and he came back and had a great game. So,
Will, over to the left, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Well, you've been here 8 months. You probably wondered what it would be like to play the shoe, just the whole atmosphere. What was it like? How glad are you to have it under your belt?
It's cool, man. It's a pretty freaking cool stadium, and the fans and the band and just the I've never been a part of so many different traditions, and I had to learn all these new traditions that we had, and it's cool, man. It's fun. It's it makes it more engaging, for everyone involved, and the skull session, and just getting to experience all this stuff that I've heard about for the first time was really fun. And now that I got it all under my belt, it's all right, now I've done it, and now it's it's business as usual from now on. But it's still cool, and it's still fun to appreciate it. When I only have 12 opportunities as a Buckeye, guaranteed, and obviously, hopefully we get 16 or 17. But I only have so many opportunities as a Buckeye, so I gotta soak it all in and enjoy it while I'm here, man. It's quite an environment, quite an atmosphere, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
So there you go. Will Howard, happy to be at Ohio State for a number of reasons. The offensive weaponry around him, the fan base, just everything that goes with it. Clearly a happy quarterback. And I think happy just to get the debut over with and then start building on that.
I'm sure that this was a little bit of a just get through it kind of day. Don't make the big mistake. Don't give people a reason to say, oh, this guy's terrible. Got through it, had a nice, efficient day, got a win, on to week 2. That's really all they needed. Because if they had won 77-0, and they had scored touchdowns on their first 7 drives of the first half, what would everyone be saying? It's just Akron. It doesn't matter. This doesn't prove anything. So if an incredible performance wasn't going to move the needle for you, a
right.
slow start followed by a strong second half,
the needle's going the other way.
That really shouldn't move the needle that much in the other direction either. It means something or it doesn't. And this is one where everyone had got some fresh air and exercise. It was a lovely day in the Horseshoe. I'm not sure how much we learned. Let's move on to week 2, basically, I think is probably the mindset for a lot of those folks. Not for the coaching staff. The coaching staff is going to have a lot of stuff to teach off of.
Yeah. if you're watching on YouTube right now, go ahead and hit the thumbs up. We would appreciate that here on the post-game tailgate presented by Tailgate USA. Tom, Tailgate USA, our newest title sponsor for the post-game show, they'll bring you a tailgate to whatever party you want to have, essentially. The tent or trailer located in 16 different states, located here on campus at Ohio State. They will bring a tailgate to you. They can bring all of the kitchen equipment that you need. They can even provide some workers if you need it. Pretty much whatever you want for your tailgate, they can get to you and provide for you so that you can have the kind of setup that you would like to brag about and impress your coworkers, impress your friends. It's an all-encompassing outfit there.
Well, what's everyone's favorite part of the tailgate? Is it the setup? No. Is it the teardown?
No.
Also, no. It is the eating the food,
Yeah.
drinking the drinks, and then going into the stadium and watch the football.
Right.
So you're getting all of the fun part of the tailgate with none of the not that fun part of the tailgate. This seems like one of these things where, there are certain things that as you get older, you figure out like, hey, my life would be better if I just could pay someone else to do this thing that I don't enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? You can pay someone to do all the stuff you don't enjoy doing with the tailgate and just get to do the fun part.
Yeah.
That actually, Tony, that actually seems like a pretty good idea.
It is a good idea. So check it out at tailgateusa.net. We do thank them for sponsoring the show. Where are we at right now?
Let's. Yeah, we have a couple graphics that we want to get punched up from our producer. Can talk a little more Jeremiah Smith. I'm sure people will be fine with it.
Okay, all right. Last time.
So this is freshman receiving touchdowns. So this is he's already number 7 in terms of receiving touchdowns for a true freshman at Ohio State. Some of the names ahead of him also pretty good. Tony, I dare say there is not a bum on the list ahead of him. Chris Carter, David Boston, Garrett Wilson, Ted Ginn Jr., Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr., and then Jeremiah Smith. Were all of those guys first-round draft picks? I believe they were.
Chris Carter was a supplemental.
Oh, that's right. But he was a supplemental first-round pick. Yes, I think.
I don't know if fourth maybe or whatever. Like he would have been a first-rounder if there was if he had been forced out of
if he had not
football.
gotten kicked out of college football for a thing you can legally now do. Yes. So Jeremiah Smith arguably going to be working his way up that list throughout this year.
The interesting thing there, Marvin Harrison did it in the final game of the season. Chris Olave did it in the final 2 games or so of that season in 2018. Ted Ginn took him about 4 or 5 games before he had his first touchdown catch against Indiana. Garrett Wilson, I think he had to wait until game 2 or so, and David Boston, he closed strong in the Rose Bowl. But I mean, that's an impressive list.
Yeah,
altogether.
definitely. That is definitely an impressive list. Freshman receiving yards in a game. Now he is 5th on this list right now. He has potentially 15 or so games left to try to move up this list or place on this list in more than one spot here. He's number 5 right now. Chris Carter, number 1, 172 yards against USC in the Rose Bowl in 1984. David Boston, 153 yards against Indiana in 1996. Chris Carter, 134 against Iowa in 1984. Garrett Wilson, 118 against Michigan in 2019. Jeremiah Smith, 92 today against Akron. Ted Ginn Jr., 87 against Michigan in, that would have been 2004, I believe. 4, I believe, for Ted Ginn. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is just trying to put this in a historical context. I feel like, do you remember the 2018 season when we were at the Ozone and I had this recurring feature on Monday that was just, what did Dwayne Haskins what did Dwayne Haskins break in the Ohio State record book this last week? It feels like we could basically do that every week with Jeremiah Smith. Which Ohio State freshman receiving records did Jeremiah Smith break this week? And then when we get towards the end of the season, maybe we will be able to remove the word freshman from that conversation.
Yeah, well, and here's another question for you. The career touchdown receptions record at Ohio State is 35. So at what...
Over.
No, well, when he caught his first touchdown, I tweeted the first of about 50. Now, at what point in September of his junior season will that 35 be broken? Because that's about where I'm thinking it's, it could happen. That's
yeah, and
lot,
here is that first touchdown catch. He had the decency to do it directly in front of me and make it real easy for me. This is a classic Jeremiah Smith thing where, hey, there's a defender right there. Boy, he's got and he just went up over him and just caught it and brought it down, easy peasy, no problem. He just makes it look so easy. He makes it look so routine. It's just amazing.
Well, and it's like he's open without being open because we haven't really seen him get open, you know. And it's, in terms of like, we've talked about it before. Like Ted Ginn would be like 10 yards beyond anybody. Like you're not seeing that with him just yet. You will, but the fact that there's guys on him that 42-yarder, 44-yarder, whatever, he had a defender on him. He just like ducked around him and pulled it in at the 2-yard line. Ridiculous.
Super chat from Hardy Jen said Joe Moorhead should be charged for accessory to murder. That QB has Jack was here tattooed on his chest. Yeah, that's one of those situations where they did what they could. They got the ball out real quick, as often as they could. It was not going to be. It did not catch Joe Moorhead or that coaching staff by surprise that the tackles were not going to hold up against the Ohio State rush ends. They did what they could, but also. The one where he got there the first time, he got there so quickly. It was they were getting the ball out quick, and it was still not quick enough.
Yeah, I'm thinking Ben Finley is like, I transferred here for this, because been at North Carolina State, been at Cal, now comes to Akron, and immediately is like, I get Ohio State, and then fortunately or unfortunately, he didn't get them for long.
We do have a quick shot of the Carnell Tate touchdown as well, or a couple shots of the Carnell Tate touchdown. Go ahead and punch those up. That was another one where, this was the play right before the Carnell Tate touchdown. I saw that and I thought, well, boy, that's too bad. That's going to be the best picture I have of Carnell Tate all day, and he's getting flipped upside down. And then 2 plays later, Tony, there he is. There's on the right-hand side of that picture, you can see a guy's arm out of focus because he's much closer. That guy, I looked at him, I'm like, well, he's in position, so he'll get there. And then this is the one where Carnell Tate just kind of did the little yoink and just hit the little L1 button. And
there's no reason not to have, there's no angle to lose on this play.
Yeah.
But yet Carnell Tate shows that he can also do run after the catch.
Yeah. There was
no, 41's not going to get there, and you can already see the angst, the anguish.
There was a lot of, this is going to look good on a film if I keep running all the way down to the end zone. So
effort points.
Mozart's Ghost says ESPN really wants people to dislike us because we paid our seniors to come back. LOL.
There is a lot of talk about the $20 million thing, and I don't think it was. Ross Bjork probably shouldn't have put a number out there because now it puts the title on it, and if you don't win it all, you spent $20 million and you still lost. That's you can tell like Ryan Day is annoyed by the thought that they're only here for the money, and it's like, no, they're here to beat Michigan, win a Big Ten, win a national championship, and they're also being rewarded for coming back.
Right. Well, I think there's a certain amount of this where the mindset is trapped in the pre-NIL mindset.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think? How many of those players do you think are a net drain on Ohio State of the seniors who have come back? I'm going to go ahead and say 0. I'm going to say all of them are probably going to generate more revenue for the football program than they will take in NIL. So I think there's a certain amount of old mindset that goes into this. Also, no one has been griping about this louder than Michigan. Tony, what was Michigan's NIL collective mission after the 2022 season? Was it to bring their seniors back for one more year? And was the NIL collective the one that did that? Really? And then did they bring in transfer portal offensive linemen multiple times, Remington Award winners, and fun? Really? Wow.
Yes.
Kevin says bad. I don't know. This is how college football is now. This is how. Do you think Georgia is playing? Every Georgia player is playing there for nothing but the joy of getting speeding tickets and winning football games.
Right.
I think there's probably some NIL happening there too.
Yeah, that's the other thing. There's only one team that has a number put to it, so then it's almost implied that everybody else is at 0.
Right,
or like maybe somebody's at 18, maybe somebody else is at 22, but you only have one number out there, and it's like, so they must be outspending everybody else and. By not just outspending, but by a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know how true that would be. But I also will say, sorry, Tom, there are more seniors that came back for this team than probably any other team. So, like, that alone is going to cost NIL money.
Sure, and how many of them would be making more in the NFL this year than they are making at Ohio State this year? Probably a number of them. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to be Pollyannas about this and say, it's just because you have a chance to, with a good season this year, earn more money in the NFL than you would have this year.
Denzel Burke said that.
Denzel Burke said that. Like, that's part of the process as well. But it's not. This is not purely I'm going for the most money I can possibly get. That's not what this is either. So,
and I also think had Ohio State beaten Michigan last year, not all of these guys come back.
Probably not.
So, that is also a thing.
Yeah,
that's a factor in this.
Jake D says, "Why were people slipping all over the field, all over the turf today? That concerns me too. It did rain a little bit. It didn't rain hard, but it was just there was a little bit of just sort of sprinkle here and there. It never really truly rained, but the turf was a little wet. And I think the Travion Henderson slip came right after that little bit of rain, so I think it might have just been wet turf in at least some cases. But you do see guys slipping on turf a decent amount.
Well, also better to slip than to stick.
Correct.
So I think
you don't want
some of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They might be using shorter cleats in order to not stick and have someone blow out a knee. Jake D thinks Fryer looked the worst of anyone on the line. I have no real thoughts on this.
Yeah. So I know I saw early on in the game Austin Seerveld had some issues, but this is the first time he's played. He didn't play at all last year.
Yeah, he is the guy who's filling in for Donovan Jackson, and he has come a long way. There's a reason he's not the starter this year, but if you're at the point where they feel they can put you on the field, that's great. Because Carson Hinzman was healthy today. You saw him snapping at the end of the game, so he was healthy. He was out there, but they felt like Austin Seerveld was the better option. That's good, and he's gonna. This is his first, as you said, first game action. How quickly do you think he's going to improve if he gets another start or two? Probably he's going to, in a couple weeks, he's probably going to be significantly better than he is right now.
Yeah, I'm interested to. We'll do a rewatch, of course, and because when all of this stuff is going on, it's hard to focus on that. But I will be interested to see Josh Fryer, see how things went there, because if you're the Ohio State tackles, you can't struggle against the Akron defensive ends in the pass rush. So I will let everybody know whether Josh Fryer had a good game or a bad game.
I, at this point, have no opinion because that was not what I was watching for from where I was watching. Mike Ferguson says, Thomas, the reason that they closed Heinegate changed my mind. Well, I'm going to tell you something. This is 100% factual. My sister-in-law, when she was a student at Ohio State, did live in the Lane Avenue dorm, which was something that they when the Holiday Inn closed, I think that's when Heinegate went away, when they turned it into a dorm. So housing my sister-in-law several years later probably did, this is one of these small domino, big domino things. And then the biggest domino is Mike asked this question right now, and I feel extremely owned because I have no response.
The Heinegate effect. The flapping of the wings causes a hurricane to make us lose Heinegate. And now people don't have anywhere to drink on campus.
Well, Tony, what about if they have their own tailgate?
That would be fantastic.
But Tony, what if I don't want to set up my tailgate? And what if I don't want to tear down my tailgate? Yeah. What then?
That's when you go to tailgateusa.net. Check them out online, give them a call as well, and say, hey, I'd like a tailgate right here this time. Let's get it scheduled. Come on out. I would like a tent. And you know what? I would also like a trailer. I would like a trailer next to my tent. I want the entire setup. I've got 48 people, and they're like, is that all you've got? Because you could have more. And so they'll get you all set up for that. And just bring your meats, your cheeses, your drinks, whatever you pleases, and they will take care of you, we promise. So give them a look. We would appreciate it. They are supporting us. We would ask that you support them as well. So, are we good?
I think we're good on questions.
All right, we are all set. Thank you all so much for joining us this entire time. You got to see the game. You got to see Ryan Day, Jeremiah Smith. Fantastic that they brought him out with in the middle podium as well after the game. Ryan Day, then Jeremiah Smith, then some quarterback. So it gives you the pecking order of the star power at Ohio State. So thank you all for tuning in. Find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com, please, and we will see you later. We'll talk to you guys later. Goodbye.